Hi guys, welcome to Pixel Affair. It's Kobe here, and in today's video we are going to see how we can get our clones or our objects that we've cloned to be affected by the forces in Cinema 4D. So if you come to simulate, you can see we have these forces here, how we can get it to affect our clones without using dynamics or using the dynamic tag. So typically for you to get your clones to be affected, or these forces usually affect dynamic objects and stuff, but I want to see, or even particles, but I want to see how we can get this thing to affect our clones without remaking the clone dynamic. So this is what we are going to do. And if I hit play here, you can see we have this cube here which we have cloned, and you can see the turbulence is affecting the cubes or our clones. Right, so let's figure out how we do this in Cinema 4D. So I'm in Cinema 4D R26, but everything I'm doing here can literally be done in almost every Cinema 4D version. Right, so this is one of the scenes where you can see if I hit play, the dynamics or the forces are affecting our objects without it being like a dynamic object or even particles or anything. So let's see how I do that. Let me create a new scene, and we are going to use clones first. So I'll come into my cloner object and I'll create a clone, and I'll create polygon. It could be any object though. Actually, let's first of all use our cube straight. So I'll make the cube a little bit smaller, right, and I'll make it a child of our clone, and you can see we have this grid. You can go into the clones and increase it a bit, maybe 10 by 10. So this is our clones, and now how do we get our forces to affect our clones? Right, typically what you do is you have to right click and add bullet tag or rigid body to it. Before now it can be recognized as dynamic object for the forces to affect it. So one thing I realized is that with the help of Jigo Deformer, and if you don't know about Jigo Deformer, like I have a video here on YouTube which actually explains the Jigo Deformer already. So the Jigo Deformer, with the help of the Jigo Deformer, I can affect regular objects with forces. So let me actually create a new scene and have, let's say, this sphere here, right? If I come into my deformers and I add the Jigo Deformer, I make it a child of the sphere, right? You can see in the Jigo Deformer tabs, we have forces. So with this tab, we can actually go ahead and add any objects, any forces to it, and it will affect our sphere. So if I come into my simulate and I choose, let's say, let me choose the turbulence rather. So I can simulate forces and I'll choose turbulence, and I come into the Jigo Deformer, the forces tab, I drag and drop in my turbulence. Now if I hit play, you see something is happening, but it's not obvious. So let's actually increase the turbulence. Let me increase it a bit to like 100, and let's add a little bit of segment, because this one is actually deforming the points of the sphere. So if I come into the sphere and increase the segment a bit, now if I hit play, you can see our sphere is moving, right? If I hit play, you can see our sphere is moving, right? So that's what the Jigo Deformer can do to help you affect your regular objects in Cinema 4D, and it can actually be useful. So for instance, its main use is actually, let me delete the turbulence. Its main use is typically for adding secondary motion to your object. So let me say, if I have this, let me disable the Jigo Deformer. If I have this cube animated, sphere animated, let's say somewhere here, and I'll set a keyframe there, and I'll bring it to like frame 15, and I'll set another keyframe. So you can see the sphere is coming from up and it's settling down. But if you want to add bounciness or jig, I think that's the name for the jiggle. So a little bit of jiggleness or bounciness, or that springiness to it, all you have to do is enable the Jigo Deformer, and if I hit play, you can see now it has given us that bounciness in it. So that's basically what the Jigo Deformer does, and it's useful. I have actually a video here so you can check it out. So this is what we are going to use to affect our clones. So now let's go back to the scene where we have these cubes created, right? So any deformer, for it to affect your object, it should be a child of the object or a sibling of the object, right? So if I come into my deformers and I create the Jigo Deformer, it can be a child of the clone, right? Because it will clone, it will be cloning the Jigo. So we can't, it doesn't work like that. That means it should be a sibling. But if I create a null object and I put both the Jigo and the clone in it, and now I do the same thing, come to my forces, simulate, and add like the turbulence, right? Add it to the Jigo Deformer, the forces, and hit play. You can see it doesn't affect, it's not working. Even if I increase the strength and everything, hit play, you can see it's not working. And the way around it, or I later figured out that the only way it can work is to use the connect object. So I'll come into my object and I'll create a connect object. I'll make the clone a child of the connect object, and also the Jigo Deformer, both the clone and the Jigo Deformer, a child of the connect object, right? And I'll select the connect object. I'll uncheck weld so that if some points are close, it doesn't weld them together, right? And now if I hit play, you can see our turbulence straight away has started affecting our clones. So if I go and increase the turbulence and probably increase the scale, you can see it's affecting our clones, but then it's not affecting them entirely, right? So for instance, if I bring in something like simulate wind, and I'll put it in the Jigo Deformer, so the forces, I'll drag in the wind, and let me hide the turbulence for now. So the wind basically is pushing our clones. If I hit play, you can see it goes and it doesn't. Let me actually increase the wind a little bit more, and if I hit play, can see it goes and now it stops. The reason why it is doing that is that if you go into the Jigo Deformer, in the object tab, the stiffness is set to 40. If we set the stiffness to 100%, you see it literally can't even move it. It's very strong. So we have to set the stiffness to 0, and now if you hit play, it will affect it continuously, right? So that's what we need. So let me delete the wind and bring back the turbulence, and now if I hit play, you can see now the turbulence is affecting our clones entirely because the stiffness is set to 0, right? So now we can increase our turbulence and the scale and all of that, and if you hit play, you can see our clones are being affected. But what it's doing is that it's actually affecting the points of the cubes or the object. All right, so in some cases it can actually stretch the point of the object or something, which you might not want. So my way around it, I don't affect the object like the cloned object directly. So in this case, let's say I have this cube, I'll bring the cube out. I'll create something like a polygon object, which has only one segment. So it means just one polygon, right? And I'll make that polygon rather a child of the cube, the clone, take out the cube, right? And you're going to clone on the polygon rather. So now I'll make the polygon a little bit smaller, right? And I'll put that one rather in the Jigo Deformer. So you can see it's not affecting the cube rather, but it's affecting the polygons. So for us to clone the cube, you have to create a new cloner object, make the cube a child of cloner object. And now in the cloner object, I'll set it to object. And the object we want to clone on is the connect, which has the jiggle in it. So I'll select the clone object and we drag in the connect object here, right? And now if I enable, you can see our cube is cloning on the surface. So it sees this connect as one object, so it's cloning on the surfaces. But I want it to clone, change the distribution to polygon center, and I can see every polygon has its cube, and now it's affecting it. In this case, it wouldn't affect the point of the cube, everything will stay intact. And also we can actually use the multi-instance so that it will be our clones will move a little bit faster. So from here going, all these forces here can affect our clones, our clones that we have. So the attractor, the deflector, you can go ahead and play around with it. So, and all the field. So if I come into my fields, you can see if I use something like a linear field, if I hit play, you can see it's affecting only the ones on this side, right? So let me go back and hit play and drag it. We set a keyframe somewhere here. no, on the linear fill. So I'll set a keyframe somewhere here, and that's frame maybe 60. I'll move it somewhere here. So now let's hit play and see now it's affecting our clones, right? So that's basically the whole how you do something like this using the Jigo Deformer in conjunction with the connects object to get your clones to be affected by forces. So I use the similar technique, and in this case I use it to affect the polygons of this particular object, right? Because the poly effects is also a Mograph object, even though at the same time it's a deformer. So you can see I placed the poly effects and the Jigo Deformer and the object all in the same group, and now I was able to affect it with the turbulence and the gravity forces. So this is a quick trick I discovered, and I felt it could be useful in a lot of situations, or it could help in some situations where you don't want to use dynamics but rather affect your object or clones. I hope this was useful and you learned something from it. If you like this, kindly subscribe to the channel, and if you have any comment or any feedback, kindly leave it in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.